Have you ever wondered where the problems in the world today would exist if we had deeper connection to ourselves, others, and the environment and acted from that place? Welcome to the Conscious Action Podcast with your host, Brian Berneman, who believe that connection is the key to taking conscious action as individuals and creating a better world. We are here to raise awareness and inspire meaningful action by sharing stories, knowledge, and conversations with thought leaders and change makers. From sustainability to well-being and everything related to conscious living, our mission is to empower you to be the change that you want to see in the world.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Conscious Action Podcast. I am Brian Berneman, your host, and I have the pleasure to be joined all the way from Edmonds in the US, near Seattle in Washington, with Fernanda Bertrand. Thank you so much, Fernanda, for being here, for taking the time, and for connecting once again. And for everyone that is watching and listening to us, what can you share about you? Who is Fernanda?
Wow, that's a loaded question, Brian. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. We got to talk a little bit the other day, and I just had such a good vibe talking to you. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to share here with you. So I'll just try to give you a very brief background, but I'm originally from Rio, Brazil. I was born and raised in Brazil, moved to LA when I was about 16, and I met my husband in LA. And then we ended up moving here to Seattle after we got married. And we have 3 kids. I have a 10, 8, and 4-year-old. And I would say that they're really the catalyst of my self-development journey. I realized after having my first kid that I just wasn't going to be cut out to a 9-to-5 trajectory. And so I had to figure it out, entrepreneurship and how to start a business. And my background is in interior design. So I knew how to do that, but I didn't know any of the business, right? So I just Googled my way through trying to figure it out, like how to open a business, how to, have the systems, the processes. And so I did that for a few years. And then I started a staging company with a friend, and that became very successful. So we turned $500 into $1.6 million in 3 years. And it was wild because it was like I was really at the peak of my material success. And I just realized that I had never felt more empty, that all the things that I thought would happen once I made it, once I was successful, none of these things happened. I was just so miserable, so disconnected with myself, so focused on my material success that I completely neglected myself, my family, my marriage. And as the universe does, it brew a nice little storm for my life. And in 2021, I decided that I was not going to be able to keep that business because it was just really consuming a lot. So I was able to sell my share in that and restart. So that's what I've been doing for the past year and a half. It's just starting from scratch, and it's been terrifying and exciting. It's a different feeling to pursue your purpose instead of like, oh, I'm just doing this to get money, right? But it's not easy, but it's exciting. So I'm glad to be here. And so today I coach mostly entrepreneur women in their businesses, but holistic success. That's my niche. It's how do you find success in all of the areas of your life, not just financially, but in your relationships, in your health, the legacy that you're leaving behind, the time that you take for yourself every day. So I really try to help my clients see that if you don't have all of these things, the material is really irrelevant because you can get to that and you still feel empty inside.
Yeah.
Well, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I often like to hear people's stories because, they show us a little bit more of a framework and a context of what actually, a little bit of what they've been through. Because a lot of times, people meet us where they are and they don't see the journey. They don't understand sometimes everything that we've been through, or the same for anybody else. We just see what we want to see. And,
Mhm.
in our society, it's so prevalent to focus on the success, as you're saying, from money and the material world, which is not that that's bad. It's just that majority of people are, as you said, when they are just focusing on that, they are neglecting everything else. And that's what I keep on seeing through the years: people burning out, people completely miserable, people, feeling, as you're saying, empty. And it's like, and they have all of these things that supposedly that's going to be what success is like. And it's like, well, we all have a different definition of success, and it's so important to understand what is my definition of success. And I think that, as you're saying, the more of a holistic perspective that we can bring into that, it makes more sense, because we are not just one-dimensional beings. We are multi-dimensional and different layers and different parts. Like, it's not the same. If it is, as you're saying, like, you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a daughter, you're a sister. You're a lot of different things, and as well, you're doing work, and as well, you're
Mhm.
building companies, and as well, and it's like, how do we see all of that? And I know for myself, and with majority of the people that I work with, is finding that holistic approach to understanding, what do I want to do, instead of
Mhm.
what is the thing that society is telling me to do.
Yeah. And yeah, society, you said that so beautifully. Um, Society, our parents, expectations, right? And it takes a lot of self-awareness for us to actually, and that's really what I did. Like, none of these things came overnight for me. It's been a journey of really going down deep into my shadows and being like, where is this coming from? Right? Like, uncovering these deep, deep layers within. And it's uncomfortable. And I totally get it that, like, not a lot of people want to do this and they want to just coast in a surface level because it's hard to look at yourself that way, right? And
Mm.
it's hard to decondition, to understand that a lot of the things that you thought you wanted isn't even coming from you.
Mm.
It's what you think your parents want. It's what you think your neighbors, your society wants, right? But then when you get down to, like, what do I really want? If I could have anything, what would that look like? And that's a loaded question for a lot of us. And it sincerely took me a year to get to a point where I'm like, oh, I get it. This is what I'm meant to do. This is that's it, right? But it didn't come overnight.
Yeah.
And but yeah, listening to, like, being still enough to listen to what is really my voice and not the voice of other people inside
Yeah.
of my head, right?
Yeah, and with that, I think that it's so important to understand that, yes, majority of people will live in autopilot, and we are living unconsciously based on all of those beliefs and those understandings that we were, programmed with or conditioned with. And it is so much easier to just go with that, even if life isn't, great, even if it has its challenges. It is actually a lot of times easier to do that, because that's what our system knows. That's what our nervous system and our body understands. When we are stepping into something different, it's not that it's like it needs to be hard. It's just that it's different, it's unknown.
Mhm.
It requires us to consciously keep on choosing something different and questioning, as you're saying, like, why do I do the things that I do? Why do I believe these things that I believe? Is this what I actually believe, or is this what I've been told to believe?
Mm-hmm.
Questioning is so important. Questioning, reflecting, and we do that, as you're saying, like finding the time and the space and stillness, and and we are all going to be different with that. I know for myself, I was fortunate enough as a young boy to get introduced to a lot of these different perspectives, tradition, practices that allowed me to slow down and to connect and to ask myself all of these questions. So I'd love to know for you a little bit, like, what were those things? We're all going to be different, but what were those things that for you it supported into like understanding, okay, I need to do something different, and these are the things that I'm going to do.
So the things like in my journey, I don't
Yes.
know if so for me, I feel like the thing that has been life-changing, it's been meditating. Like just literally quieting my body, and the resistance that I had to go through was enormous, because your body doesn't want to sit still. And when it does, your mind will wander to different places, and it's like you don't really want to sit with those thoughts, right? Like we're constantly, like in our society, we're so, like, especially here in the US, right? Everything is like scheduled. It's very regimented, right? I have an appointment at this time. I have to be here at this time. It's very time, like you're very aware of time, right? And when you're in your mind, it's kind of like you lose track of time. Like sometimes I'll do a meditation and it's only like 20 minutes, but then I go into these different realms, and it's like, and I get it. It's hard. It's hard for you to sit there because, your mind doesn't want to do that. You want to escape. You don't want to be bored. You don't want to really see what's down there, right? And then you like remember something that happened when you were 6 and you're still thinking about it, right? So like for me, that was the biggest thing that helped me, was just getting my body to get used to, you're going to sit there and you're going to see what comes up, and without judgment, like without being like, oh, it needs to be a breakthrough every single time, because sometimes it isn't. Sometimes I'll just be sitting there and I'm thinking about what to make for dinner, and but I think just becoming aware of the thoughts, the reoccurring thoughts that go in my mind, right? That has been what has really helped me in my journey, is just becoming more aware of my inner dialogue. And yeah.
And I think that, and a lot of times when I'm teaching mindfulness or meditation, one of the things that I say is, what you just mentioned is, meditation or mindfulness, it doesn't need to look a specific way. It's not that your mind is just going to go blank and and you're going to get insights all of the time. I mean, that might happen, and also it might happen that for however long you are meditating, that you felt uncomfortable and you felt like and you're thinking all of these different things, and that is part of the practice, because as a practice we need to develop more awareness and to observe what's showing up, as you're saying, without judgment. And I remember once one of my teachers like told me, especially towards the beginning of someone practicing meditation, the meditation practice is 99% of the time, when you catch yourself going somewhere else, just come back to whatever it is that you were doing. And it's not like, oh my God, I was just there. And it's like, no, just come back to whatever practice you were trying to do, whether that was stillness, following your breath, focusing on something. It doesn't matter what it is. Just the entire practice is coming back every time, and it doesn't matter if that, I went on this thought and like effect for 1 minute, 20 minutes, it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter. The moment that I catch myself, I just come back. And I think that this is so important as well for people to understand. And this is one of the things that, that I try to bring a lot of times into the spaces that I work with is meditation. We need to forget what it is, especially for those that don't practice it yet, and just connect with the present moment and becoming more aware. That's it. Like, not anything else. It's just be present as much as possible,
Mm-hmm.
become more aware as much as possible. That's the starting point.
It's so true. I think that we have this misconception that meditation means that you are just this very stoic, like my thoughts are pure and I'm just zen. And it's like, actually, no. Like meditation is where I get to see a lot of my shadows. It's where I get to see a lot of my whoa, I can't believe I'm thinking about this. Like, this is wild, right? But it's when I catch my stories. And then I always think that it's not about, like, you're never going to get to a point where your ego doesn't speak anymore and that your thoughts are pure all the time, but you're shortening the period where you're running the programming of like, oh, they did this because da 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 da, right? Like fill in the blank because we're just telling stories in our minds, but it isn't true. And we're telling stories about ourselves, about others, we're projecting things. And then I catch myself in these loops. A great loop that I have, I'll share with you, but it's a loop of picking up socks around my house. And I would just be like in my head of, oh, I hate these socks. I'm picking up these socks. These kids are so annoying. And then I catch myself in that loop and I'm like, this is the life I prayed for. I prayed for this life. I prayed for this house full of kids, chaotic, noisy. This is what I wanted.
Mm.
And then I pick up the socks and then I can like catch myself, right? Does it happen all the time? No. And sometimes I will run that story for a really long time. But as long as I'm catching myself, right? Sometimes it takes 2 minutes for me to catch myself, 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. But the goal is to shorten that story, that loop.
Yes, definitely. And I'd love to know, Fernanda, like, when did you start meditating? Like, how was that path for you? Like, did
Mm.
you like read some books, watch something? Like, did you get
Yeah.
introduced to different teachings?
So I started with Joe Dispenza, which I feel like a lot of people start with that. So I did that like on YouTube for about 6 months. And I kept thinking like, oh, I want to go to a retreat. I want to go to one of his retreats. And my husband and I went together last year at the beginning of last year. So we did his 7 day meditation retreat. And it was just wild because being in your head for 7 days is pretty intense, and like our meditations were really long. Like we would have like 3 hour sessions, right? And it's like stories keep coming up and you're like, whoa, I thought I was done with this and it's still coming up. So that was like my first, okay, I can meditate. And then a few months after that, I actually went to another retreat and it was by Sadhguru. And he has his own, it's 22 minutes. It's called the Isha Yoga. And I like his practice because it's a mix of yoga, breath work, and chanting. And it's 22 minutes. And I feel like I couldn't do the 1 hour longs from Joe Dispenza anymore. It just doesn't work with my life and kids. But 22 minutes, I can commit to that, right? So I started practicing that Sadhguru yoga. It was May of last year. So it's been it's been a little over a year of just, being really good and then falling off the wagon and then being really good and then fall, and then summer and then I get sick, something happened, right? So that's why it's a practice. I always try to share this with people that like, it's like going to the gym, right? It isn't always perfect. And sometimes you get sick and you don't go. And then it takes a while, right, for your body to get used to going again. But that's why it's called a practice, that like it's not going to be perfect. And the other thing too is if all you have is 2 minutes to breathe, then take 2 minutes, because that's more than zero, right? And it compounds at the end of a year. So yeah, so that's what started for me. It was Joe Dispenza going really hardcore, like very, very hardcore, and then finding this other technique that I felt like was more aligned. And I think it's different for everyone. And I think it's like being exposed to different techniques and finding what fits with your lifestyle.
Yeah, I often share this, as you're saying, it's so important to understand there's so many different ways of actually connecting. And we need to find the ways that resonate with us. And we're going to get, like drawn to something because of we are going to resonate. And not every discipline is the right discipline at every single moment. And once I remember my teacher, he told me it's easy to be disciplined with the right discipline. When you don't find that right practice for yourself, or that right technique, it's going to be more challenging. And also, we need to understand, like, I lived in a Tibetan Buddhist retreat center for a few years. It was easier for
incredible.
me. Like, it was easier there to have those long practices. Whereas, like, in life where I'm going to teach at university, I'm going to see clients, I'm going to work with some businesses. Not every day I have it's not that I don't have it. I'm not prioritizing every single day sitting for 3 hours, because also now, after more than 20 years of practicing daily meditation, I don't need those every single time, those long practices. Every once in a while I do those because they are helpful. And yet one of the things that I teach a lot is those micro moments of presence, that everybody has 1 minute. Perhaps, as you're saying, not everybody like has with their life circumstances at this moment to put 1 hour or 2 hours for practices. Everyone has 1 minute. And one of the things that I usually tell my clients, and this is one of the ways that I learned, is what do I already do that I can hook a practice into it? So whether that is, like I'm going to sit to have my meal, and just before I have my meal, I take 3 deep conscious breaths. And it's like, okay, that was my moment of centering, of grounding, of being present. And then, as you're saying, that compounds because we're just showing our system that we can actually be present. And then with time, that starts to expand.
I think it's wild that it's so hard for us in this modern society to literally breathe. It's kind of insane how hard that is.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show of like how far removed we are from the truth of the essence of what it means to be a human, right? Like if finding 2 minutes in our day is so hard because we're so busy with everything else, like it just doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah. But the more, like for me at least, the more that I understand how our brains operate, how our nervous system operates, how like we are all conditioned, we all carry trauma. Of course, we are not wanting to be present, because being present means we need to notice. It's easier to escape. It's easy to repress.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to actually be healthy or sustainable, yet it's easier because we're wired that way. And as you're saying, like it requires so much unlearning and so much courage to do something different as well, that it's not always easy. And it's the same, as for deciding, okay, I'm going to sell my business and I'm going to start my own thing and being an entrepreneur. The same. It has the similar type of challenges because we are doing things differently and we're embarking on a journey that, potentially we don't know anything about. And this is why a lot of times it's so important to, at the same time, there's this interesting thing that I have found, that a lot of our personal work is individual because we need to do it. And also so much easier when we have someone that can be there with us or for us, can hold our hand and can give us, different perspectives, different wisdoms, or just be there for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm lucky enough that I have a husband that's that for me, and we actually just started working together in our coaching. He's a high performance coach, and it's been a good balance because he reminds me of things and he'll ask me these deeper questions. I think that in the process of deconditioning who I was, like letting go of these things that I thought was me and it wasn't, there's been a lot of changes. I stopped drinking. I just natural things that were just like, oh, this doesn't really fit with me anymore. And I remember going through a period of being like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like everything that I thought I liked or was important to me isn't there anymore. And you kind of feel this void. It's a weird space to be in. And I feel very fortunate that he was there through that period to remind the essence of who I am. That, yeah, maybe there are things that are becoming different about me, but at the core, I'm still the same. And he was there to remind me of that. So that has been really helpful in my journey. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'd love to know, Fernanda, so when you're working with someone, what are the things that you focus on to support them with?
So I do a lot of visualizations, and I actually I use a lot of Chat GPT to help me, and I'll script very specific journeys for my clients. Like I'll get to know a little bit about what they're going through or just what resonates with them. So I have kind of just a base of what I do at the beginning. Like I guide him through like a chakra. And then I do sound healing as well. But I do a lot of the uncovering that I do with my clients. It's through visualizations. And yeah, they get to the core of their desires. This is what I try to always tie back, right? Like, yeah, you have this business, you want to make money, but what's the deeper purpose of your business? Like, what are you actually doing, right? Like, what's the big vision here? What's the legacy that you're leaving through this business? And oftentimes it's hard for people to think that because they just need to pay the bills. And it's like, I don't know, I just need to pay my mortgage next month, right? But then when I get them to lay down and just listen, they already have the answers, right? Like I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm just creating the space for them to listen to their own voice. So I feel like that's the most healing experience that I provide. But like we talk and I go through different things and worksheets and just trying to help them understand who they are, their core values. And I'm really passionate about big vision. Like what's the big vision here? Like what is the legacy that we're leaving behind? And then I also have my favorite that I do, and it's a death meditation session that I guide people through detaching from their body and material things and their family. And then we go into like visualizing like you in your casket and what people are saying about you, the kind of person that you were. And I actually did this with a coach years ago. And that was just life changing for me to see my life that way. Like, oh, this is so finite. Like, I don't really, the only thing I have is now, today, right? Like I can't tell how long I'm gonna live. So I gotta take every day as it could be my last day and create as much impact as I can. And so I really enjoy that session. It's fun for me.
Nice. Yeah, I got when I remember once that one of my main practices was working with death. And this is one of the things that I often say to people when I talk about death. It's not about dying, it's about living.
Living.
Focusing on death is about the preciousness of human life. And as you're saying, how impermanent it is, and how I have no idea when it's going to be my last moment or anybody else in my life last moment. And so, what am I doing with each moment that I have? And this is the interesting thing, of how we've been conditioned that it's kind of like, how can I live in the now and also, allow that there is a potential future?
Mm-hmm.
Because once I asked my teacher, like how do I balance this? Because like if I just live in the now, I'm not going to, go to work, or if I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
die today, I'm not going to go to work. I'm not going to worry about money.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't die, then what do I do? Because then I have to pay rent or the mortgage or whatever it is. So it's like, so he told me, be present, don't be stupid. It's kind of like this thing of
I like
like,
that tip.
it's kind of like, if I don't die, that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yet I don't need to live my life as if that's going to happen. And I see it especially with relationships. That changed a lot of my relationships, especially with my parents and other people, that I was kind of like, like there's always going to be another day. Well, hopefully, yes. I don't know. And it's what you were saying, earlier with picking up the socks with your kids. It's like
Mm-hmm.
coming back to a moment. It's like, this is what I wanted, or this is what's happening. And what's the point on getting, like frustrated or angry
Mm-hmm.
about something that is actually so beautiful? And it doesn't mean that
Mm-hmm.
we are repressing that, because if that's coming up, we need to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it's like that coming back to being aware of like,
Yeah.
this is precious.
I 100%. I have these moments of like being so hyper aware of the present moment with my kids. And it's like, I look at them and I almost want to make a mental note. It's like, I don't want to forget how you look like at this time. And then I think about like, they're all here under one roof. Like, these are going to be the good old days. Like, one day I'm going to be in my bed thinking about, oh my gosh, when my kids were little, I was trying to build this business and do this and do that, right? And we we often don't think about that because we're just living in like our routine and our like, oh, I'm so stressed and this and that. But when we can expand our mind and see like much further out and then come back to this, then we have perspective. Then it's like, oh yeah, I prayed for this. This is what I wanted. This is exactly what's meant to happen at this time in my life. I am meant to pick up these socks.
Mm,
But yeah, I agree with that too. And I think the other thing about going and talking about death is that it's so taboo. It's such not a thing that we do often. Like, but if we go down to our deepest fear, right? Like at the depths of our fear, it's the fear of death. Like when you follow the trail of whys, but why are you afraid? But why? Why? It always goes to, then I'm dead. Then this isn't here anymore because we don't know what's next. So that's, well, then it's the end, right?
Yeah.
But when we go there and we can see how like, oh, it doesn't need to be scary, right? It could just be something that it's like, oh yeah, it's the next part of this experience, like, and be excited for it. Not that I want to die. It's weird, but
Yes.
it's like getting your mind to go there. It gets rid of the fear of like, because you never confront it, right? But if you confront it, then it's like, oh yeah, this will happen. It's inevitable.
Yeah.
And I'm living every day as it could be my last day.
Yeah. I was actually yesterday I was teaching a class at university around stress for exams because exams are coming up for the students, and it was, you know, um, helping them to deal with what's going on now before their exams that start tomorrow for some of them and then next week. And one of the things that I asked was, okay, why do you get stressed about this? What's so important? And it's like, well, because I want a good grade, or I want to pass, or I don't want to fail, and all of this. And it's like, okay, so what's behind that? And what's behind that? And in the world of trauma, everything really, as you said, leads to death. We don't want to die. Therefore, we created all of these different survival mechanisms that most of them don't really serve us. And this is why it's so important to do all of this work of unlearning and allowing ourselves to go to the understanding that, okay, there's a voice in my head that is telling me this because it's been conditioned, yet I don't have to believe it. And also, I can look at my life and realize a lot of the times that I thought that something was going to happen and why I got stressed, which is always I thought that I was going to die. I didn't die. Therefore, I am my own, like the my own way of understanding that actually I survived. Therefore, I don't need to believe all of my fears. I can acknowledge them and be like, okay, I'm still going to do this. Or, not the right time. Or whatever I decide to do. And understanding, like, we are resilient beings. And how can we do it in a healthy way? How can we do it in a way that allows us to actually be well as much as possible all of the time?
I think that's so spot on. It always goes down to, and I'm alive, and I went through this, and I'm still alive, right? And if we can bring back I think it's important to remember that this is finite, that this isn't forever, that as far as we know, we have one chance at this, right? Now, it could be true, it could not be true, I don't know. But as far as I know, this is the only life that I'm living right now. And so it's my responsibility to figure it out how I'm going to make the most out of this journey that I have at this moment, right? And so I think it's really important to remember that this is not going to be forever. And that's the thing that allows me to do these like bold moves and, restart careers and just walk away from a lot of money, because it's centered in this, if I only have one life to live, how do I want to spend my days, right? How am I serving others through my life? And it doesn't make it easier, right? Like challenges still come and bills still need to get paid. There's like the materialism of life doesn't go away, but this inner knowing that like, oh yeah, I'm doing this for something that's bigger because I want to have I want to have this specific meaning for my life, right? We're all here to create meaning, and it looks different for all of us, but it's like, at least get after the meaning, whatever meaning you're wanting to create, right? Don't just wait and just watch your life pass by and be stuck in a relationship or a job that you hate, that you dread going every single day, and you know you're selling your soul and you're just like miserable, right? Like, make steps towards living the life that you are meant to live. I have this like sticky note here on my computer, but it says, "My joy leads to abundance." And it's just like a reminder every day that like I am here to find joy through whatever I do. And as long as I find joy through having a conversation with you or helping a client, then that's going to lead to more abundance into my life. And I
Yeah.
just got to focus on that.
You know, for me, a lot of times, and this is one of the questions that I keep on asking myself all of the time, because as we keep evolving, you know, like it's checking this and all of the time, and I share this a lot with my clients, is what's important. Because as you're saying, you know, it doesn't negate the fact that we still need to, you know, live. As long as we're living in society, we still need to make money, we still need to pay for things. And what's important? If all that I'm focusing on is the things that is just about the money, I'm on survival mode. I'm not focusing on what's important. And it's okay, because, you know, that's where I am. But as you're saying, what are the steps that I can take to create something different? Because every time, and I see this a lot with my clients, every time that we are in a job that we don't like, we think like, I cannot quit because, you know, like, I'm not going to be able to find anything else, or then I'm going to stress out more about, you know, the fact that now I don't have work. And it's like, okay, not everyone needs to quit from one day to the next without any plan at all. For some people, it's going to be more helpful to understand, okay, for now, this is what's helping me to survive, and I need to create a pathway to a change. And other people, it's like, well, I can actually quit because there's people in the world that have done that and they survived, and somehow they managed. And it's like, you know, it's choosing potentially challenging situations. You know, and it's like, well, like, if they're both challenging and I know this one is not working, why am I staying here? It's
Yeah.
not that easy. It's easier said than done, of course.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't think that it's a smart move to just quit. You know, I certainly feel very blessed to have been able to sell this business, to start a new business, because yeah, if it wasn't for that, there is no way that I wouldn't be able to have a job now, right?
Well,
Well,
there
this
is a
isn't a
way.
job. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's the stories that we tell ourselves, and I
Yeah.
think that it's that, you know, like, some people can take that bold move and quit from one day to the
Yeah.
next, and, you know, life will sort itself out, and, you
It
know,
always does.
and whatever that looks like. And for some, it's going to be a couple of days. For some, it's going to be a couple of months. For others, it's going to be a couple of years until it sorts itself out. And still, it's like, what are we keep on choosing? Because what, you know, as you're saying, what brings me joy, or what brings me happiness, or what makes me, you know, like, to be present, what brings me to the place of connecting with love, or whatever it is that we want to do, regardless of what it is that we are doing.
Yeah. I love that. And one extra thing that I encourage to my clients to do is going after the actual feeling, right? Because we say we want money, but what you really want is a feeling attached to that. So if you go deeper, it's like, oh, I want money so I can provide for my family. So what happens when you provide for your family? Oh, then I'm free to spend time with them. Then what then what? Then what? So like, we're always going after a feeling, and we think that money is the thing that is going to allow us to have that feeling. But if we just skip that part here and we just go straight to like, what am I actually wanting to feel? we want to feel connected, right? I want to feel connected with my kids, in my marriage, in my relationships. So if I just lead with that, then I'm living my dream life today. And it's not attached to how many dollars I have in my bank account or the car I drive. It's not attached to anything outside of myself. And that's the thing that I try to bring to light, that like I straddle this line of the 3D and the spiritual, because at the same time that I'm detached to material things, I'm very driven by money, and I enjoy having, and I enjoy the expansion that comes from it. So I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I think the main thing is not attaching our sense of happiness and self-worth with the money, right? The money will come and it enhances who we are, but it doesn't define us. It doesn't get to dictate whether or not I get to live my dream life.
Mm-hmm. And as well, and I tell this a lot of times to people, money is just the medium that we're using to get the things, as you're saying, that we're wanting, whether that's initially the material thing or the time or the freedom. Like, really, it's all about the feeling. So, like, that makes, like, for everyone listening, it's like, take that on board. Fernanda, I'm aware of our time coming closer towards an end. Is there something that you can share, and perhaps it's something that you have already shared, or something completely different that you wish everybody in the world knew?
Gosh. That's a good question, Brian. I wish everybody knew the power that they have within, the power to be, do, and have whatever their hearts desire. I go back to this often, that the word desire actually means from God. So I live under the assumption that every single one of my desires that live inside of my heart are put in here from God. And it's my duty in this lifetime to get after it, to make those desires come true, because they were put in here through a bigger force. I don't know where they came from, but they're here, right? So I think just knowing that we are unlimited beings, and there is nothing that we can't have. And it's really a matter of figuring out, what do you actually want, and getting after that feeling.
Beautiful. Love that. We are all powerful and we're all worthy. So we always need to remember that. So
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Fernanda. For everyone that is watching or listening to us, and if they are resonating with you and what you're sharing, where can they find more about you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram a lot. I am Fernanda.Bertrand on Instagram. And I have this other account, creatingchange.life, with my husband, Creighton. So we are focusing on that this next year, just launching how to help people find their purpose. That's our main goal at Creating Change. And but you can find me on Instagram. I hang out there quite a bit. And thank you again for the opportunity. This was really nice.
Thank you, Fernanda. And for everyone listening or watching us, let us know what resonated with you. What did you hear? What already do you do of all the things that we've been talking about? I'd love for the conversation to keep on going. So leave us a comment anywhere that you're finding this. And I'm going to put the links for Fernanda's Instagram and website on the show notes so that it's easier for you to find it. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Fernanda, once more.
Thank
and
you.
See you all next time.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
What did you like the most about this episode? Take a moment to think about what change you can make in your life today.
Share your conscious action on social media using #ConsciousAction and tagging @ConsciousActionNZ so we can celebrate your impact on the world and create a ripple effect.
One easy action we would love for you to take right now is to share, like, and subscribe to this podcast. This will help us get these messages out into the world and inspire more people to take conscious action in their own lives, contributing to the better world we hope for.